We'll just wait till the Makar disrobes.
Till I adjust my microphone pack.
As long as it's just a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Ruth Wisher. It's my very great pleasure to be introducing this evening's guest at the Edinburgh International Book Festival. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking that I would guess that becoming Scotland's Makar evokes quite a wide range of emotions. Pleasure, of course, at representing your own country's rich poetic heritage. And perhaps a bit of mild alarm at the thought of creating to commission instead of eclectic inspiration. And perhaps too a little irritation that you lose a chunk of your private self, which means that every time you offer what you consider a mild commentary on the state of, to take an entirely random example, the Scottish theatre, the press corps descend on it with forensic zeal, and we may deal with that little hazard in a moment.
I wouldn't call it too forensic. I wouldn't mind if it was a bit more forensic.
We'll discuss this shortly. But tonight is mainly about celebrating our good fortune that Liz Lochhead's many talents have flourished here in our native Scotland. She's inspired a generation of women poets and authors because of her confidence in her own tongue, rather than feeling obliged to write as if you were, as she once noted, posh, grown up, English, male, and dead. That vernacular, insightful voice has, in the words of Robert Crawford, a diction of kaleidoscopic pace and liveliness, a Scots which manages to bring Tartuffe in touch with Holy Willie.
Yeah.
Her plays reprise the vivid dialect of her poetry, not least in her celebrated translations of Molière, and Thon Man Molière is the subject of her latest work. His and other French classics transposed into Scots have proved that the Auld Alliance is as linguistic as it once was political. Her pen has also been used to devastating effect with the Greek classics, as witness the award-winning Medea. However, her new volume of poetry, A Choosing, does what few writers might dare to do, inasmuch as she's mixed some of her early work alongside contemporary offerings, and we'll hear in a moment just how delightfully that interweaves. Please welcome Scotland's Makar, Liz Lochhead.
Hi.
What have you lost?
I've just lost Medea and Thebans, and I was wanting to maybe do a bit of them. I've got them out just in case they come up in questions. You never know. Ruth and I have put together far too much that we're never going to get through, so we'll have to go blah, 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 blah.
Alternatively, I'll just do what we agreed.
Yes.
So, let's just get this out of the way. You wrote a piece in Gutter magazine about, as was reported...
I didn't write it, I was interviewed.
You were interviewed for a piece in Gutter magazine?
Piece, yeah.
Well, I tell you what, why am I saying this? You say what you
Okay.
said.
About May or something like that, a friend of mine, Colin Begg, who's a passionate poet and a paediatrician actually to trade, asked could he interview me for Gutter magazine, which is edited by my great friend Henry Bell, a young Englishman friend who's just taken over. And I said, well, okay, and it was a long interview with a lot of chocolate biscuits. He brought a whole packet round, and I must have been high in chocolate biscuits to not put things maybe all the time exactly the way I might have meant to, but to have been as willfully misunderstood as I feel I have been recently is quite upsetting, actually.
And here's your chance to say what you really meant.
Right. I was just saying that I love the work that the National Theatre of Scotland has done, but I do not see why we shouldn't have more work which also includes some of the great Scottish works of the recent past. For instance, Edwin Morgan's translation of Cyrano De Bergerac by the great, yes, people are clapping because there was a great reading of it here at the Book Festival. I was part of the working party for the National Theatre of Scotland, and part of the remit was to revive recent classics like that, like perhaps Medea, which had just won my own version of Medea, which had won the Saltire Prize, largely because of the wonderful performance of the great Maureen Beattie, who, was led to believe that they would probably revive it, but they never did, and we kept trying to lobby for that. So I would have loved them to have picked up on, now I hope this isn't spoiling his career, to kind of give him a puff. He didn't ask me to do this, I've not seen him for ages. My great friend Daniel Jackson wrote a wonderful trilogy with The Wall, The Ducky and The Chookie. And it's as good as John Byrne's Slab Boys, trilogy.
That's a big statement.
It went through, it really is, it's fantastic. It's a period piece like that. The period it examines is a gang of kids in Tony Blair's last government, sitting waiting for their O-level results. That's how it starts. It's funny, it's polemical, it's deeply, deeply Scottish. Now, it went through the National Theatre of Scotland. I couldn't believe they just didn't sniff the vigour in it. And it was very, very difficult for that even to get on at all, because theatre's very difficult now, because all the theatre companies that used to exist were decimated before the creation of Creative Scotland. Nobody's blaming Creative Scotland, nobody's blaming the National Theatre of Scotland for this, but all the theatre companies that existed were decimated, and now everything's funded on an ad hoc one-to-one basis, which means that, for instance, at the moment, I've got a play. My latest play is actually called What Goes Around. If you look at the posters, you'll think what goes around is gonorrhea. That's not the truth. The poster is not a good design, but if you read the blurb about it, you'll realise it's a riff on La Ronde. It starts off with, well, I'll tell you, it starts off with 2 actors. It's in there, yes.
We're already totally out of sync, by the way.
No, sorry. Oh, Ruth, we knew it was going to be anarchic. You should have known. She's okay about it. But anyway, what goes around? She's got to be. She can't say anything more. What goes around? I'll tell you what it's about. It's day 1 of rehearsals of La Ronde, that sophisticated, worldly, once forbidden, 100-year-old classic, oft called a sexual daisy chain. An actor and an actress, strangers till this morning, sit down together for a drink to break the ice. ... One thing leads to another. Sex, the most fun you can have without laughing. Well, when it comes to human beings, you've got to laugh. 2 actors play 8 characters in this sparkling contemporary sex comedy, a game of consequences and connections, a riff on modern mores and manners that'll entertain and make you think. Before you make that move, aye, maybe.
Now,
Yes.
just while you've got that in your hand, on the back of that theatre programme is the list of quotes that we agreed we were going to use.
Okay, that's
You
all
just
right.
Have that
there.
about your person, just in
I've got
case.
it.
Just in case.
Oh,
You never
Ruth,
know.
we'll get there. We'll do our best.
Right. Well, what? What?
No, I'm here. I've got to plug what's happening next, and hope that you don't just come and see me at the book festival. I've got a show on every day. I've brought my leaflets for that. If anybody buys a book, they're getting a leaflet shoved in it as well. I've decided to become a bit more proactive as I get older.
Never.
'Cause nobody's going to do anything
Who'd have
for
guessed,
me.
eh? We're going to have a reading that what we agreed, because it's something you
Yes.
want to read, which
Yes.
which is the poem that you wrote, what you wrote for that magazine.
No, I didn't write it for the magazine, but they collected it there. That was its first publication.
All right, and it's
It was a
called-
poem. I wrote it to write a poem.
I think I'll just go home.
Yeah. No.
Go for it.
Right. I would have preferred people read the poem rather than misinterpreted completely my opinions from an interview. Anyway, the poem is called How to Be the Perfect Romantic Poet. And it was a first the phone call poem. A lot of poets from all over Britain were asked to do a riff on the Coleridge and Wordsworth's lyrical ballads, which are 200 years old just now. So this was in Bristol. It was published. So, How to Be the Perfect Romantic Poet. I like this poem, and it's a new one. So it's nice to do a new one at Edinburgh, isn't it?
It's
Is that all
perfect.
right, Ruth? Yeah.
Please.
We're like Morecambe and Wise here with the word on my glasses. How to be the perfect romantic poet. Be born male. Begin your career as a poet early. Take advantage of your nursemaid's momentary distraction by, not yet a 12-month, crawling to the fire and snatching out a live coal, flamed and glowing, learning to brand Promethean sensation to your flesh and brain. This will also initiate you nicely into the twin satisfactions of rousing the whole household with your shrieking and getting a maid into trouble. Be orphaned ere you grow to double figures. Ever after, idolize your father, disappoint your mother. Have a sister. Every romantic poet worth his salt most certainly has a sister. She'll be the one to hearken when you sing, "Come, my sister, come, I pray, with speed put on your woodland dress, and bring no book, for this one day we'll give to idleness." Even if you are not Lord Byron, be mad and bad and dangerous to know. Be faithful to your muse and marry the wrong woman. Your muse will most fulsomely reward you. When in London, lodge at the Salutation and Cat, that hotbed of sedition. Thrill to that. Leave your long black hair unpowdered. Wear your blue topcoat with a white swansdown waistcoat, your muddied stockings most spectacularly bespattered, but most vehemently refuse to change them just to please your wife. Dream, but ere you're older, if you want to get much older, attempt to wean yourself of your predilection for laudanum, opium, brandy. Do drop the Kendall black drop for the more sedative stimulants of eggnog and Orinoco tobacco. Soar. Escape the real world of gruel, sulphur ointment, haberdashery, pig iron, cotton manufactories and silk mills. Worship all winged creatures, angels, harpies, the starling, seamew, ostrich, owl, canary, vulture, the nightingale, sparrow, thrush, bustard, tomtit, dove, duck, linnet, lark, and the albatross. Dread above all, becalming, stasis. Love the wild wave, the humble bird-lined thornbush. Let nature be your teacher, but be a library cormorant. Dive deep. When it thunders, run bareheaded, hair-brained, out into the rain. Miss all deadlines, write all night, tempt and court the nightmare and the succubus in pursuit of the green radiance, in pursuit of the fugitive colours of the day. A poem.
I want to talk a bit more about the theatre later on because I know that we've got a bit at the end that I'd really like you to read, but let's just pause and discuss the health or otherwise of the Scots language itself just now.
Well, Scots language would be fine if we didn't get things like the Scots lead policy, new thing, which just, I saw it and my heart sank to the bottom of my boots. It's the most well-meaning document I've seen for a long time, and I can't see how it would do anything other than great harm, unfortunately, because it's in English on one side of the page, perfectly understandable, slightly bureaucratese English, policy speak. And then, in case we didn't understand standard English, it is translated into a weird kind of invented ersatz 15th century kind of language. The Scots lead policy. Now, I have never heard anybody in central Scotland, which it says it's central Scottish Scots, central Scotland Scots. I've never heard anybody in my life just saying, outside of a Scots Language Association meeting, I've never heard anybody talk about the Scots lead for the Scots language, which is, of course, is many, many different languages from all over Scotland. So we get things like, we will work with partner bodies to tak ilka opportunity to hease up awareness, kenning about and using Scots, both nationally, i.e. again, and internationally, i.e. to highlight opportunities for more development. And we're also told that we will develop a Scots kenning and training programme for our staff for bodies that we support, and for broader partners through the culture community. This will be developed in partnership with the Scots skriver Jens they are in the job. Scots in our operations. This was the one I liked the best. Scots in our operations. We will accept, apparently the Scots word for accept is accept without a T. We will accept only communication as well as applications for Scylla support, as applications for Scylla support in Scots. Presumably they pay us in groats or perhaps sacks of oats. I'm not too sure. Dear God and govern. What supporting Scots is supporting the living language, the spoken language, giving people the confidence that the Scots that they speak is a perfectly valid language for them to speak and for them to use creatively, straight off, not translating English into some version of it. You know, it just made my heart sink, and it's the most well-meaning document I've seen for a long time, and it's just not the right thing. People will laugh. You all laughed. I wasn't taking the piss out of it. I just read it, and you all laughed. They did a thing like this in Ulster. They invented a thing called Ulster Scots, which I think they've dropped because everybody laughed their socks off at it.
Right. I'm not going to, because I have a small connection with the organisation that produced it, I'm not going to say anything at all about it. So I am, however, going to get you to read something in Scots.
In Scots, yeah.
And I think we agreed that because it's such a cracking play, you were going to do the opening speech from Mary Queen of Scots got her head chopped off.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of Scots. I didn't write this in English and then translate it. And I was able to use quite a lot of Scots from over the centuries because it was a play set in history. But it became a modern, creative language for me. I don't use Scots all that often. You heard my standard English, you know, how to be a perfect romantic poet. Standard English is probably my more natural language, but I do use Scots a lot when it's the right language for the job. Okay, Corby's speech from Mary Queen of Scots got her head chopped off. Country, Scotland. What like is it? It's a peat bog. It's a dark forest. It's a cauldron o' lie, a salt pan or a coal mine. If you're gey lucky, it's a bonny brich beer meadow or a park o' kye. Or maybe it's a field o' stains. It's a tenement or a merchant's hall. It's a hoorhouse or a humble cot, Prince's Street or Paddy's Market. It's a fistful of fish or a pickle o' oatmeal. It's a queen's banquet or roast meats and junkets. It depends. It depends. I dinna ken what like your Scotland is. Here's mine's. National flower, the thistle. National pastime, nostalgia. National weather, smir, ha, drizzle, snow. National bird, the crow, the corby. La corbeille, le corbeau, moi. How me, eh, eh, eh. Voice like a choked laugh. Ragbag o' a bird in my black duds. All angles and elbows and broken oxter feathers. Black beady een in my executioner's hood. No bra. But I think I hear a sort of black glamour. Do I no put you in mind of a skating minister? Or on the other foot, the parish priest, the dirty beast. My nests are Ricola sticks. I live in lamb's eyes and road accidents. Oh, see, after the battle, man, it's a pure feast. My eyes are ever big even for my belly. In lean years of peace, my belly thinks my throat's been cut. Once upon a time, there were 12 queens in the one green island, and the one green island was split into 12 kingdoms, but no equal kingdoms. Nobody in their right mind would insist on that, for the northern kingdom was cold and small, and the people were low-statured and ignorant and feared of their lords and poor. They were starving, and their queen was beautiful and tall and fair and Frenchified. The other kingdom in the island was large and prosperous, with wheat and barley, and fat kye in the fields of our yeoman farmers, and wool in our looms, and beer in our barrels, and at the mouth of her greatest river, a great port that sucked all wealth to its centre, which was a palace and a court of a queen. She was a cousin, a clever cousin, a wee bit older, and maybe no sae braw as the other queen, but a queen nevertheless, queen o' a country with an army and a navy and dominion over many lands. Twa queens, one green island, caw, caw, caw. Thanks.
It's amazing, or maybe not, how politically opposite that is.
It was written in 1987, 86, 86.
Very prescient, yes.
Yep.
Also, such wonderful words for Myra McFadden to get put in her mouth, lucky
Yep.
lady.
And there's been some terrific Corbies since.
Yeah,
It's been great.
I remember
yeah.
her the first time.
Yeah, she was magic.
I want to go on to because we're supposed to be talking about the book, and we should, because I want you to read something from it. But what struck me about a choosing this new volume of yours was
It's
that
not new. It's about 3 years old.
it's new to this audience tonight, or else.
No, it isn't, because I talked about it the last two festivals. No, honestly, the book festival put that in. The book festival put it in. Ruth. It's not your fault. The book festival put it in.
What I would like to say about this
Uh-huh.
old volume
Yeah.
of poetry. This, very old volume of poetry, is that I thought it took a huge amount of courage and confidence to intermingle the way you have done some of your first work with some of your contemporary work. And the one that I'd really like you to read, just purely from my own prejudices, because it's my own favourite, is the one that you took the title from.
Yes. Well, the book's called A Choosing, and I think what I was doing by that was saying that on another day I would have picked another selection. A selected poems, you just do pick a rag bag. But the poem, The Choosing, Ruth, do you know, it's the first poem I ever wrote, just about. I think maybe
well.
the first or second. I think what it proves is, unfortunately, as a poet, or as any kind of artist, actually, you don't necessarily get better, but you're stuck with the lifelong job of keeping on doing it, because you never know when a good one will crop up again. You're hoping for the best. So, The Choosing. Yeah, I like this one still as well, so thanks for thinking of it, Ruth.
Thank you, Liz.
Right, The Choosing. We were first equal, Mary and I, with same-coloured ribbons and mouse-coloured hair, and with equal shyness, we curtsied to the Lady Councillor for copies of Collins' children's classics. First equal, equally proud. Best friends too, Mary and I, a common bond in being cleverest equal in our small school, small class. I remember the competition for top desk or to read aloud the lesson at school service and my terrible fear of her superiority at sums. I remember the housing scheme where we both stayed, the same houses, different homes, where the choices got made. I don't know exactly why they moved, but anyway they went. Something about a 3 apartment and a cheaper rent. But from the top deck of the high school bus, I'd glimpse, among others in the corner, Mary's father, mufflered, contrasting strangely with the elegant greyhounds by his side. He didn't believe in high school education, especially for girls, or in forking out for uniforms. 10 years later, on a Saturday, I am coming from the library. Sitting near me on the bus, Mary, with a husband who is tall, curly-haired, has eyes for no one else but Mary, her arms around the full-shaped vase that is her body. Oh, you can see where the attraction lies in Mary's life. Not that I envy her, really. And I am coming from the library with my arms full of books. I think of those prizes that were ours for the taking and wonder when the choices got made we don't remember making. I've got a wee question for the audience at the end of that one. When the person speaking the poem, who's a persona of mine, not quite me, when she says, not that I envy her really, hands up those that think that she does really envy Mary.
All the men.
Hands up those who think she doesn't really envy Mary. Hands up those who think she does and doesn't envy Mary. And that's what you write poems out of, mixed feelings. You write your polemical stuff, your entertainments, your out of things that you're very sure what you're saying, and you maybe make them rhyme or do witty things with them to make them make their point. But your poems, and although it's not the greatest poem in the world, I do think it's a poem. So therefore, it's out of mixed feelings,
It speaks to every young woman's ambivalence, doesn't it? About
Yes, ambivalence not a natural thing for all human beings,
now,
all our life.
Because this is a very old volume of poetry, I think we should talk a minute about the plays, because I mean, all the Molières you've done, and you say your new work, of course, is Thon Man Molière, but all the Molières you've done, have been much lauded. And I'm wondering to what extent that's because you love Molière's work, or because the Scots and the French language do interchange in a particular way.
I just absolutely love Molière. I don't know how well the Scots and the French language correlate really as languages, because I've only got my higher French and a pretty terrible version of it, and I can't speak French at all. I occasionally use it for a bit of lingua franca with other people that were taught French badly, and it helps us get on with each other.
Usually in a restaurant, I presume.
Yeah, or Spain or Italy or somewhere else, places where other, But I mean, I work from ancient, unrhyming, Victorian or earlier word-for-word English translations, things that are literally unspeakable. And if it's a rhyming Molière, I've made them into rhymes. I've done the three great ones. I've done Tartuffe, first of all, which was into a sort of ancient... it was into sort of the Scots of my grandmother. To my great surprise, I didn't set off for it to be that. I set off to rhyme it, because Molière had rhymed it. It just came out.
That's how it came out?
Yes, it was sort of my grandmother's Scots. Then I did Misery Guts, which is a version of The Misanthrope, which is in completely contemporary, effing and blinding, American-infused, ordinary, concrete, today Scots, because the story of it, there's no servants, there's no forced marriages, there's nothing that didn't make sense in Scotland in 2004 when I first wrote it. I rewrote it in 2013 for the Conservatoire of Scotland, the Toire as they all call it, apparently, yes, because when I went to do the read-through of my old one, the guy who was going to play Alex Frew, Alceste from the Molière, was such a brilliant actor, I fell in love with him. So I stayed up all night, all during the first week of the rehearsals, and gave them a version of it where Scotland had become an independent country in 2015, and Alex Frew still wasn't pleased. So that was in contemporary Scots. Then another one in fairly contemporary Scots, but it had to be done as if that contemporary Scots was a lingua franca for 16th century Molière stuff, was Educating Agnes, which was École des Femmes. And Thon Man Molière is a biopic about Molière, and it's only half written because in April, the Creative Scotland gave the company that had asked me to do some free work for them last October, they finally gave them the go-ahead for us to go into rehearsal, not Monday there, but the Monday before, despite the fact I had a completely full diary, including doing a festival show every day, so I've not been able to be at rehearsals. We got the go-ahead in April. So I've had to stay up all night writing it. I had written quite a lot of it because the director kept saying to me, no, do it, because I've got a feeling we'll get a yes. I said to him in February, I can't do it now if they say yes, because there's no time. And he said, no, you must. I said, well, if they say yes, could we not say we'll do it next year? He said, no, we've got to do it now. If we get the money, it'll be for now. I said, what do you think I write this stuff in? Ectoplasm? He said, probably. But anyway, you've got to do it. So anyway, I'm pretty proud of this ectoplasm. It's the one that, what goes around, first. They're both... Coincidentally, they kind of come together. They're both plays about life in the theatre, And I think I know quite a lot about life in the theatre, having spent most of my life, well, not the second half of my life. I started late. I started when I was about 32 or something like that. But for the second half of my life so far, I have written a play most years. And since I was widowed 5 years ago, I have done... people say that you've not done any plays. I have. I've done 3 chamber pieces that I'm very proud of, but they've been done for a play a pint or for the Tron in 2 weeks rehearsal with small casts.
Yep.
But I don't mind. I'm really happy to be a miniaturist. I'm much more of a Chekhov fan than a Dickens fan, you know. So I'm not bothered about myself with any of this complaining that I've been doing. I've got a play to write. I'm really happy. I've got to do the second half of Thon Man Molière. I think the first half is pretty bloody good, and so do other writers that I've shared it with are going, you're cooking bagasse at the moment, Liz, so keep cooking. I have to hope they're right. I'll start finding out in September when I finally get back to it. And when this other one's on. But I love writing for the theatre, and I'm happy to do it under any conditions.
In another incarnation, I used to interview people in the radio, and you always had to wait for them to take a breath, and sometimes they didn't.
And she had to shoot them. You know, BBC Scotland was littered with corpses.
But we're not going to get a bit of Thon Man Molière, but we are going to get a bit, I think, of Misery Guts.
I hope so, yes. Just a tiny wee bit. It's very irreverent. Yes, Alex Frew isn't very pleased, despite the fact that Scotland did become an independent country. So anyway, Phil, his friend and his producer, he's a television presenter, or he's described in the play as the thinking woman's Melvin Bragg earlier on. It's so funny, I know. Anyway, his pal says, you shouldn't have told so-and-so that she's well past her sell-by date as a presenter. And he says, I did. And his friend says, yon you Holyrood correspondent, you're his prime tormentor. Sure, the boy made an arse of it at first, eh? But did you have to call him the Anti-Kirsty? Absolutely. You're kidding. Not one toty bit. I don't kid on. I say what I think. That's it. On air. Live interviews. That's when I'm really cooking. Yeah, take that programme I did looking at the cinematic oeuvre of Jim Kilsyth. I goes, hi Jimsy, see your films. What a pile of Celtic whimsy. But it's not just on camera at Scotia. Take tonight, through in that gallery there, why not? I just put folk right in passing. Thing was in there. Yon actress wifey with the big mouth and political ambitions. Get a life, eh? Yon Celine Z. Brune. The woman is a pain. I says, oh, Mrs. Glasgow, you can sing nain. Never could. So you've changed careers, I see. Obviously, you're going to be a brilliant SNP MSP because you played one once in a taggart on the telly. Aye. Dream on, baby. Pigs will fly. Christ. Bad wine. Haggis canapes. Finger food. Through there, it's Hotchin with the not so great and no very good. Big Dougie McBogle was stood there in his cowboy boots, effing and seeing at one of Scotia's suits, who, oh golly gosh, this is raw, was chuffed to the gutties. I goes, McBogle might drink like a real writer, but he's no put biro to jotter since yon TV play that was groundbreaking, aye, but it wasn't yesterday. As for those paintings, I just tell yon macaroni fella his abstracts were watered-down second-hand Frank Stella. I says, Scottish avant-garde, the notion's bollocks. The daubs and dribbles on these walls are a load of bollocks. Thing we laughed, yon neo-narrative Glasgow boy. I says, laugh all you want. I don't especially enjoy your portraits of sentimentalised, violent machismo either. Oh, did you see Thingy through there? Him that wrote on cult novel, every cult heaped praise on, by the shovel load. It got shortlisted for every prize it was going. Well, he's fairly hit the drink since. It's showing. Oh my God, and how? Very few plaudits for the poor bastard now, booker or no booker. And yes, a Scot is still eligible, independent as we are. But it's fucking unintelligible, so Slim Bullman's no book won't set the heather particularly on fire. And so what? I told him so. Nothing personal, but he seemed to want a square go. Kelvin Cardiff glowered at me. The guy was in drugs. I says, apart from your first book, folk that read you are mugs. I told yon young playwright Willie Waddle his theatre of boring ideas was absolute twaddle. He was drinking Chardonnay with yon Creative Scotland chappie who smiled at me. I says, You look happy. Christ knows why, but since the state of the arts in this country is absolute mince. Thanks to you, the artists, big surprise, are in exactly the same boat as they were before their beloved Big Yes vote. Phil says, Alex, you wanted an independent Scotland, you campaigned. I know we won. So far so good, but so far we've gained very little of the autonomous, self-confident flourishing of what I'd hoped would be really echt and authentic, nourishing the soul of the people, expanding horizons for the children of the future, who'll inherit this land of ours and the culture we are creating for them willy-nilly by default. Don't tell me these clowns through there are worth their salt vis-a-vis creativity. Would you look at the lot of them? Fuck me, not an ounce of talent between the lot of them. They're useless. I get stuck in a corner there with Thingway. Priceless. Oh, the bitch was absolutely beeling, but fuck it, I'll live. Yep, I told Rose Riverbed her plays are rubbish, derivative. I goes, can you not do nothing original? The nation's up to here with you numpty doggerel translations. She was there with a tribe of horn-knitted lost-the-plots who wanted me to sign their petition lobbying for Scots. Scots the language to be taught in schools. Our independent Scotland is a ship of fools. I said, I'm signing nothing. She says, but Alec. I says, next you'll be asking me to support the Gaelic. Gaelic? No cunt speaks it, it's moribund. So, shall we set up a special fund? See, I'm the only person that's no too polite to tell our new independent Scotland it's a bag of shite.
I think, ladies and gentlemen,
I disagree wholeheartedly with Alex Frew. My husband said to me, my late husband said to me when he read the first version of that speech, he says, I hope you think calling yourself Rose Riverbed and taking the piss out of yourself is going to save you from getting a slagging from all.
I was just going to say that was an absolutely textbook example of Liz Lochhead's legendary neutrality in all matters political.
Well, I don't agree with him. He's a dramatic creation. He's a pain in the arse.
However,
he was quite entertaining to write.
However, as you have mentioned the word independence 3 or 4 times, both in conversation and in text, I did want to ask you at some point tonight, and now's as good a time as any, whether you regretted putting your head so far above the political parapet last year.
I didn't put my head particularly above the political parapet. You know, people ask you, what are you going to vote? And you decide whether to say, everybody's vote's a private matter, or whether to answer. And I just said, I'm going to vote yes. And I was a yes voter. Now, I think almost more than half of my friends were no voters. My best friends, who want the same kind of things as I want, but disagreed with me of how we get it. We did not fall out. My great friend, the late, great, and very, very missed David McLennan, for example, was passionately against an independent Scotland. The night before I did go in and vote yes, I thought about my mum and dad. I thought about my mum and dad. I thought about my dad, age 19 at Dunkirk, and getting out and getting through it, and then never speaking about it again. I thought of my mum in the army down in Kent, listening to the buzz bombs and above and hoping that the noise didn't cut out. I thought of how they had no contradiction between being British and Scottish. I thought of my dad coming back from the war and breaking faith according to his father, according to his unionist minor father who was dying of silicosis but voting Tory or unionist because he was, because of the culture, the tribal culture that he came from, and my grandfather had to see all his sons come back from the war and vote Labour, and my dad, for the rest of his life, while still taking somehow the Daily Express, was, I would say, a John Smith supporting Labour Party member, and as good a man, as was my mother, as good a woman as you could possibly meet. So the night before I voted yes, I was thinking how that would have pained them, because they saw no contradiction in being British and Scottish. And I had come to see that of the two things, I don't hate being British, but that I thought it was worth trying to go for an alternative. I did not join the SNP. I thought that I would never join a political party in my life. I was briefly a Labour Party member way back in the 80s, but I had never, been a member of any political party since, and I thought I wouldn't. But I decided, after Nicola Sturgeon made her speech about equality and what she believed in the Parliament, that I believed her and trusted her, and that I would like to vote SNP, and that as a private citizen I could join the SNP if I liked. That was the last ridiculous bloody stooshy I got involved in. Where people said that as the national poet of Scotland, I should be neutral. I'm not the bloody Queen. I don't think anybody would accept. I hope nobody will accept. I'm only the Makar for the next 3 or 4 months. Then, thank goodness, I'll be able to retire to private life and be allowed private opinions. And nobody will be interested in them, and that'll be fine by me.
Won't it be interesting when you've got private opinions and never say anything contentious at all?
I know. That'll be just fine, Ruth.
We're going to let the audience come in, but I know there's something else you want to read, and we're going to leave that just to the last couple of minutes, to the very end. But
and we might not get through it all, but whatever.
We'll do our best.
Yeah.
So, if you could just pause briefly. We've got two microphones. If you'd wait for the mic to come, that would be very helpful. Who's going to start us off with a question for the Makar? Don't worry, she only bites presenters. She doesn't...
Oh, Ruth, I didn't bite you.
No. No hands up. God, you have scared them.
I know. No. But I mean, Ruth, you were misled. I never said that I would talk about choosing. And I never read the blurb in the thing till I came
Could we not
today.
go back to that bit?
No. Okay.
Does nobody want to ask the Makar a question? Yes, that gentleman there.
They're all scared now.
They are terrified.
That's good.
Can't blame them.
My God. Oh, Ruth.
Oh, Liz.
Oh, Liz.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hello.
You started off and somehow you got diverted in telling us about this stooshy about the theatre. Could you finish what you started and tell us just what the outcome was and why you were so fiercely criticised?
I don't know why I was so fiercely criticised. I said that I would like more Scottish repertoire in the National Theatre, as well as the wonderful things that they do. I was not criticising anybody. I really, really like Laurie Sansom. And the fact that he's not Scottish doesn't matter if they've got somebody there looking after the Scottish side of the repertoire and who knows about Edwin Morgan's both his plays, his Gilgamesh or Cyrano de Bergerac or if there was people there that knew about the great work that Jerry Mulgrew of Communicado has done. I mean, it's ridiculous that he's not had a commission to do a wonderful big Scottish National Theatre thing. It's fairly ridiculous, I think, that Sir David McVicker, my great friend, the opera director, didn't get an answer when he offered to do something for the National Theatre of Scotland. I'm just saying, I love what they do, but there's other things that need to be done as well. That's all. I can't help but feel it must have been willfully misunderstood by Joyce Macmillan, a very, very honourable journalist, always. I really am very surprised that she made up what I don't think and reported that in the paper as what I think, and then used, if I was as articulate as her, which I'm certainly not, especially in print, if I was as articulate as her, I would have used exactly the same arguments as she used against the argument she put forward of mine, which is not the argument I have. So I think she owes me an apology.
Have we all got that?
Yeah. She owes me an apology, which I possibly will or not, or won't get.
Excuse me, lady there.
And then if she gives me an apology, I'll forgive her, as I always do.
We both love Joyce. We do both love Joyce.
Sorry? Yes, I love Joyce. Or I did, up until she lied about me. And I would like us to sort it out. Yeah.
Handbags at dawn, folks.
I'm sure you will, Liz. I'm sure you will. Just, you mentioned the very lamented, David McLennan, your great friend.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm wondering whether you think the legacy of Oran Moore with the play The Pie and the Pint and the wonderful stuff that came out of that kind of whole decade.
It's a living legacy. It's still going on. They're doing very well. I mean, there's a Scottish guy. I've never met him.
Has he got a natural successor? That's what I was really asking.
It's still happening.
Still happening, good.
David made very sure that it went on longer than his life. He trained up a couple of wonderful young producers who are producing great work, Scottish and international, on Tuppence Halfpenny. And for instance, there's a young Scottish playwright I've never met. His name's Tim Primrose. He did a play last year in the season that I loved so much. I went back to see it twice, you know, and just couldn't believe what a wonderful play it was about a very, very sensitive subject. And it was just brilliant. So, you know, it's not about just supporting your friends. I've never met this boy. He's a great writer. And there's a lot of terrific... it's one of the best plays of last season was done by a woman. It was her first play. She's in her 50s. You know, young writers are not necessarily young in age. Older writers like me are thrilled to get to do an Oranmore if nobody else is able to give them a job.
And the great thing about Oranmore, of course, is that not only, as you say, is it now got an international, it's the template that matters and it's gone international, but it's also got a wonderful partnership with the Traverse here in Edinburgh. So you quite often, if you can't see it in Glasgow, you can see it through here.
Some of them, just a few of them. And it's not necessarily the best ones, but though, yes, this Tim Primrose one was. Yeah, I mean, it isn't, it's the Traverses ones that go to, yeah. Okay.
Right, somebody,
Yes.
Could you wait
You
for
wait
the
for the
mic?
microphone
I'll
because
be right
the
with
audience
you.
won't
Just,
hear you.
could you pass it? Just a wee
Just
second.
pass the mic, just
It's on
2
its way.
seconds.
It's on
2
its way.
seconds, the mic's
There's
coming.
2 impatient people
All I
up here. We
wanted-
don't need a third. Yeah.
All I wanted to say was that the summer pantomime was on here at the Fringe, and I've forgotten what the name is, even though I saw it. But
It's called the Pied Piper
Piper
of
Hamilton.
Of Hamilton.
That's it. Go and see it. It's good.
Right, that's great. I haven't seen it yet because I've been too busy. I'm gutted. That's the first Oranmore panto I've missed because I just literally haven't had time for fun because I've been too busy writing this play. But I've had good fun writing the play.
The Oranmore pantos are so
Hilarious.
well loved that the audience is
Yeah.
already about 3 lines ahead of the actors. Yeah.
Yes, they're great. I mean, a summer panto, what a great idea. It's like end of the pier entertainment.
who's
David McLennan was a genius producer and writer, and we won't let his legacy die. You know, we all love him far too much. And David Anderson, who's just at his 70th birthday, is writing better than ever. And it must be very, very hard for David to work without his lifelong writing partner. I don't know how he does it, but we've got no choice in these things. Ruth knows that as well as I do. You've
Well, the
just got
great
to
thing
go
is
on.
that David Anderson is just in the foothills of his prime, so he...
Yes,
you know.
as are we all. You and me, Ruth, as well.
Anybody else want to ask a question before we get on to the last section here? Oh, somebody there. Sorry, didn't see you. Thank you.
And back to the poetry. You mentioned ambivalence as being an important part of writing a poem. My favourite poem is My Rival's House, which I think you addressed both sides of the question beautifully. Was that from personal experience?
Yes, that is probably the most personal poem I've ever written, My Rival's House, as it happens. And I like it so much that I put it in the choosing.
This old poet.
It is a very old poem. It's about a mother-in-law that I never had. Will I read it?
Why not?
Well, there's nothing I can do. Then I won't get on to the... Well, I'll get on to the beginning of the other one at the very end. Where is it? My Rival's House. It's not ambivalence. This was hatred on both sides. She didn't speak English, so she never read it. You know, it's not... My rival's house is peopled with many surfaces. Ormolu and gilt, slipper satin, lush velvet couches, cushions so stiff you can't sink in. Tables polished clear enough to see distortions in. We take our shoes off at her door. Shuffle, stocking soled, tiptoe. The parquet floor is beautiful and its surface must be protected. Dust cover, drawn shade, won't let the surface colour fade. Silver sugar tongs and silver salver, my rival serves us tea. She glosses over him and me. I am all edges, a surface, a shell, and yet my rival thinks she means me well, but what squirms beneath her surface, I can tell. Soon my rival, capped tooth, polished nail, will fight foul for her survival. Deferential, daughterly, I sip and thank her nicely for each bitter cup. And I have much to thank her for. This son she bore, first blood to her. Never, never can escape scot-free the sour pot luck of family. And oh, how close this family that furnishes my rival's place. Lady of the house, Queen Bee. She is far more unconscious, far more dangerous than me. Listen, I was always my own worst enemy. She has taken even this from me. She dishes up her dreams for breakfast, dinner, and her salt tears pepper our soup. She won't give up.
You can always tell when Liz really, really means something because she doesn't need to read the notes. It just comes out.
No, I've learned it off by heart because I've performed
Yes,
it a
I
lot
wonder
of
why.
years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, we said that we wanted to end up.
I had a lovely mother-in-law, though, about a decade and a bit later. I know,
Yes.
for 25 years. And she was a different cup of tea
That was just the
altogether.
first time round. Yes. Anyway, if we're going to get this in, we have to move on to it.
Okay.
We were talking earlier on, you and I, having a brother back in the art about the state of Scottish theatre, and you said you'd quite like to end with something that really was your credo. So if you can
My
select a
credo
bit
for
from
what
that.
we're doing working in the theatre. Okay, this is what I'm doing. Tell the story. Make it make sense. Whether you've got a budget of 400 grand or 50 pence. Just tell the story in the present tense. Tell it in prose, tell it in rhyme. Tell it in words of one syllable, tell it in mime. Give it the old soft chew with the once upon a time. Tell it with a soaring operatic aria or a wee folk song. Tell it with a pure heart and an open mind, and you won't go far wrong. Tell it to the world and his wife, and their illiterate friend who doesn't even know Hamlet dies in the end. Tell it complete with undeleted expletives. Tell it short and sweet. Show it, so I'll know it, with a silence, a look, or a beat. Tell it in extravagant verbal flights of fancy. Audibly, gi'es a chance. Even tell it in dance. But just tell the story, not necessarily loud, but clear. Don't show me where we're going. Take me there by telling me the story. Let me in. Are we sitting comfortably? Then let us begin. Doesn't have to be a new story. The old ones are whiles the best. Just, is it a good story? That's the acid test. What are we human beings like, eh? What have we got in us? There's the best of the worst and the worst of the best, so gather round, pickaninnies. Tell it like it is, but don't forget the aisle being full of many noises, plenty brand new voices, ain't never been heard from yet. If you're determined to be tragic, well, gi'es the odd laugh, please, even if you're up to your oxters in blood. Think Euripides? On the other hand, Molière was right on the money with his cast of gloomy obsessives who were just so hellish funny. So take a long look at life, tell the truth, play it as it lays. Oh, plus KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, as the man Mamet says. Part one of the process, go back to square one and just tell the story all over again. Don't forget to have fun. Let's not get arty or earnest. God, earnest is the worst. To hell with them if they can't take a joke, but don't tell the punchline first. Yeah, tell it in the right order and you'll really put us through it. Through hoops, loops, one fell swoops and, oh my God, I knew it. To hell with telling folk what they should think. That's not polite. Don't try and change people's minds. Maybe just try change their night. For the message is, there is no message. Heaven forbid. Let the audience think on about what happened, but be damn sure what did. And though it is show business, not tell business, nevertheless, have I said this before, eh? The business of the whole show is to just tell the story. And though non-narrative theatre seems to be all the rage with the funders, if not you punters, let us put on the stage the one and only ever-loving rootin' tootin' story, which will out in the end. Long live the story, although it depend whether it's a living nightmare or a midsummer night's dream. Yup, depends on each and every member of the creative team, not fucking up the story, however hard to stage, them all telling the same story, being on the same page, telling it with style and pace, 1 to 90, back to 0. Do get right inside your character, monster, everyman or hero, but it's not your story, it's not about you, it's not about the bad divorce the leading actor's going through. It's about the people in the play and what happens next. Just tell the bloomin' story. Stick to the text.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our allotted time span, but Liz is going to be in the main signing tent, which is, as you all know, is Left and Left Again. And if you would like a copy of this fine old volume of poetry, she'll be there to sign it.
And
And
leaflet about my daily show, 12:15,
That
assembly rooms.
that as well. And there are, of course, what can I say? There are, of course, other of Lizzie's works there as well. So if you want to chat to her, if you want anything signed, if you want to make sure you get the right time for her show, please go into the signing tent and please let her get out of here first before you talk to her,
Okay.
because otherwise we'll be here all night.
Okay.
Please thank Liz Lochhead.